31. Night of Faith. Nightfall was upon Rust Town when Ryan arrived at the orphanage. His good and unwilling friend Ghoul was trapped at the back, missing most of his limbs. Hopefully, his presence would get the land off the courier's back for the evening. "I would take you out on a walk," Ryan told his captive while stepping out of the car, "but I don't think this place was built with the elderly in mind. Besides, the kids there are too old for you." "Bleep you," Ghoul snarled. "I swear I will." Ryan closed the car's door behind him, the skeleton's insults turning into muffled noises. Most of the animals were asleep in the big pen, a few dogs barking at the courier as if he were an intruder. Unlike his previous visit, the orphanage's doors were closed, though Ryan could see light coming from inside. The genome knocked and waited. Eventually, a little girl in pink opened the door, raising a gun at his face. "What do you want, druggie?" "Hi, little Sarah," Ryan introduced himself. "Is your mama here?" "How do you know my name?" she asked, looking at his hat. "You're a magician?" "Oh yes, I'm especially good with explosions and disappearing acts." "Watch." He stopped time and switched her crappy revolver with a Desert Eagle. "See? So cool," she said with admiration, examining her new toy as if it were a doll. "Is it loaded?" "Yep, but I put the safety on. I can switch it for a shotgun, or pretty much any firearm." "You're Mr. Ryan?" she asked him, the courier nodding. "Mama is inside. She said you would come." "Can I get in, or do I have to break my own hole?" he asked, pointing a finger at a broken window nearby. "You can. But you do anything to Mama or the others, and I will disappear your face." Ryan said nothing, making her frown. "That sounded way better in my head." "It comes with practice, my young Padawan," Ryan said, walking inside while she closed the door behind. From within, the orphanage looked as dilapidated as the outside, with wallpaper peeling from the walls, and only one lamp for 2 rooms. Sarah wagged her new toy at Ryan, guiding him through. Now that he could take a good look inside, Ryan grew convinced that this place had been an animal shelter first, and repurposed into an orphanage years afterward. The kids had made bedrooms out of caged compartments originally meant for animals, half of them already sleeping or reading old books from Jules Verne. Some of the children slept with a cat or dog under their bed sheets. He found Len in the kitchen, cooking fish for a group of 4 kids gathered around a table. His old friend wore the same brown diving suit as last time, and she kept the water gun in a corner of the room. The kitchen clearly lacked equipment, since Len used a camping stove for the meat. She immediately froze still upon seeing him, Ryan removing his hat and mask like a true gentleman. "Riri," she said. "Who is this, Ma?" Ryan recognized the speaker as the girl whom Psyshock tried to brainjack, Julia. He examined her facial features, the vague shape of her skull, and a chill went down his spine. Psyshock had a similar facial structure when he attacked Ryan at Shroud's shack. He also noticed the boy that had been playing with Sarah before the psychos attacked the area. His golden retriever waited at his side, looking at the dish while wagging his tail. "He looks weird," he said, observing Ryan's costume. "He's a magician." Little Sarah showed them her Desert Eagle. "Look." "Sarah," Len scolded her but took no step to remove the gun. "What did I tell you? Don't point weapons around, especially not at strangers." "It's fine, Ma, I know how to use them," the little girl pouted in response.
"Yeah,
"Right, you can't even hit a soda can at 3 meters, a boy taunted her, Sarah pinching him in the arm. "It's true. Ryan, this is Sarah, Julia, Romaine, Albus, and Valeria." Len made the introductions, before looking at the courier with a conflicted face. "Kids, this is Ryan. He's an old friend." "Does he come from the magical place?" little Valeria asked, a dark-skinned brunette no older than 12. You don't talk about the magical place to strangers. Sarah told her, the other girl putting her hands on her mouth. Sorry, Ma. It's okay, Len replied, putting a hand on Sarah's shoulder. Can you serve the food to the others and make sure everyone gets their share? I must talk with my friend. Is he your friend or your boyfriend? One of the boys pestered her. I want to know. Len responded with a strained smile, while Ryan remained silent. If it had been anyone else, he would have cracked a joke, but he didn't want to embarrass her. I'll be back soon, Len promised, grabbing the water gun and leading the courier outside the kitchen. The kids looked at them with suspicion, Sarah clapping hands to get their attention. Adorable. It's nice, what you're doing here, the courier started, immediately finding his words awkward. Len had that effect on him nowadays, to the point he couldn't do sarcasm in her presence. The invisible barrier between them wouldn't fall anytime soon. Thanks, she said, embarrassed, before leading up towards a stairway. We can go to the roof. They'll listen through the door and pester us otherwise. Ryan was pretty sure they would follow and try to eavesdrop on them anyway. He knew children all too well, none of them could resist the lure of a magician's hat. Len led him to a door reaching the roof, locking it behind them. Ryan sat at the edge, his feet dangling into the void. His old friend glanced at him before sitting in the same position, albeit with 2 meters of distance and her water gun in hand. For a moment, neither dared to break the ice, both glancing at the skies above. Even with the lights of New Rome and the polluted air, the stars shone as bright as ever. It made Ryan wonder if he should invest a few loops in researching how to build his own spaceship and explore the universe. A ski vacation on Pluto sounded quite appealing. Kinda reminds you of the old days, doesn't it? The courier spoke up first. We always debated if there was sentient life out there. I still think we're alone in the universe, she replied. It's all dark and cold beyond our little blue planet. We aren't alone, Ryan argued back. And if you ask me, the stars shine brighter still. She shifted uncomfortably on her spot. Ryan realized his attempt at small talk just made it awkward. Did we? Len trailed off, biting her lower lip. Did we already have this conversation? So, she had taken him at his word. It seemed Len still trusted him somewhat, even after all this time. We only talked once, in your house under the sea, Ryan admitted. You told me you didn't want to see me after I led the carnival to your dad, how you had known I was alive for 2 years, and that you had built your underwater base for Sarah and the others. So it was true, Len muttered to herself. Time travel. It's possible since many violets can alter spacetime on a limited basis. But I still can't grasp it. Do you travel physically? Or is it just information transfer? I can mentally return to a point I fix at a specific moment, with my last one made a few hours ago, the courier explained. Only my consciousness travels back in time. A save point, like in your video games? Ryan had always loved playing with them, whenever he found a console that still worked. Can you? I can't move my save point back into the past, no. The courier shook his head. When I create a new point, it erases the first. I wish I could save your father, save us, save the world, but I can't. I can't change the past, only the present, and future. What's done is done. Len winced at his words. Ryan instantly regretted his bluntness, but he had to say it. He couldn't let her get any false hope up. How does it work? She asked more questions. You create or travel to alternate timelines? Ryan shook his head. You know about Schrödinger's cat? The thought experiment? Some psychopath puts a cat in a black box, where the animal has a 50-50% chance of dying or surviving. As long as you don't open the box to check the result, the cat is technically both alive and dead. I heard of it, Len replied. Of course she would, she read everything she could get her hands on. I thought it was meant as a nonsensical joke towards quantum physics. It was a joke. But as it turns out, I'm a cat, both alive and dead at once. Ryan joined his palms together as if holding something unseen. That's our space-time continuum, he explained. It's a black box where all of time and space happens. All moments in time, all possible timelines. Past, present, and future. It's too small to contain the whole universe, Len replied, smiling thinly. The sight warmed Ryan's heart. It appeared the children had a positive effect on her mood, compared to the last loop. You just have to fold it enough times. But if our universe is the box, then does that mean there's something outside it? Yes. Ryan nodded. A dimension outside space and time, the observer's dimension. Let's call it the purple world. The purple world, she frowned. I haven't set on an exact name, but purple world sounds nice. Even acid rain seemed to agree. The purple world exists between all moments in time and points in space, though I only really affect the first part. Len listened without a word, trying to make sense out of his words. But she was smart even without her power, and while it seemed outlandish, she agreed to entertain the theory. I actually exist at 2 points in time, Ryan continued his explanation. When I create a save point, I divide. One version of me exists in the purple world, trapped between 2 seconds, and another me continues on, the person you're facing right now. I'm both at once, and we share the same consciousness. You can say that my power is temporal by location. So when you die, it's like Schrödinger's cat. Len's expression changed into one of horror. You're alive and dead at once. Yes, except that since my consciousness is spread between the 2 versions, I cheat. I collapse the timeline where I'm dead, and I create a new copy from my save point with the knowledge of the erased future. All events between the 2 points are undone. But you don't have to die to trigger that power, right? Len asked, pleading. When Ryan didn't answer, she put a hand on her mouth in horror. How? How many times? Ryan shrugged. Countless. How can you say that? Even with their troubled history, he could see the compassion in Len's gaze. She had remained ever so kind. The implications, it's horrifying, Riri. Well, my first few dozen times were terrifying, Ryan admitted. I went mad or catatonic from the stress a few times. But past the first 30 or so, it became normal, like taking a cold shower every day. You get used to everything, even death. It didn't ease up her worries at all. If anything, Len grew even more concerned for him. But since you exist in 2 time periods, some conceptual powers, white genomes, or memory-altering attacks could affect both versions. I suspect someone like Cancel. Wait, do you know Cancel? Len nodded. Cancel would cause my power to unravel if I died in her vicinity. Obviously, I'm not going to tempt her. And the stopping time? Did you take, she stopped herself, the question going unsaid. Did you take 2 elixirs, like my father? Are you a psycho? I only have the save point as my power, Ryan reassured her. The time stop is an application of it. I cause both of my divided selves to converge, and thus both our reality and the purple world align. This creates a temporal anomaly where I'm the only one capable of applying force to objects, and my power protects me from the negative side effects. It's a pretty sweet deal. However, if I keep it up past a 10 seconds limit, the 2 versions of you fuse. You open the cat's box and look inside. Which always causes me an early restart, meow, Ryan said, but she didn't smile. I've spent decades studying the purple world, trying to see if I could use it to improve my power and make more than one save point. Your chronoradio, that's why you made it, she guessed, Ryan nodding in confirmation. Did you succeed in physically entering that dimension? Ryan thought of the rabbit plushie. Not really, he replied, frowning at her. By the way, how did you hack into the chronoradio? Or knew I had one? She bit her lower lip. I've been. You've been stalking me? Watching you for a while, Len replied while blushing, which made her look adorable. She immediately changed the subject. That purple world, are you the only one who can access it? Some violet genomes can tap into its power. That was the only explanation for Acid Rain's abilities. Maybe all violet genomes derive their abilities from it. A human body can't do half the things a violet genome can, even while heavily mutated. Len fidgeted in place. Riri, how old are you? It must have taken years, decades to figure all of that out. I don't know, the courier admitted. He had long lost count. Maybe I'm 500 years old, or 800. Maybe more. And you've been looking for me all this time? Now she sounded positively guilty and remorseful. You couldn't know, Ryan replied. He could never hold anything against her. I thought you were dead or out of reach after the first decades, so I just wandered off trying new things. It's only when I got my hands on a piece of your tech that I realized you were somewhere in New Rome. Len turned away, something appearing at the edge of her eyes. Shorty? Ryan frowned, as he watched her hold back tears. Len, are you crying? I'm crying for you, Len said, looking at him with clear guilt in her gaze. You've spent centuries alone and he raised his hand toward her. She visibly flinched before he could touch her, making Ryan back away. I'm sorry, Len repeated, feeling even more crushed. Just give me time to process all of this. It's all of this at once, it's too much. It's too much at once, Riri. It's okay. We've got all the time in the world. He instantly regretted it, saying that as Len's face darkened even further. God damn it, why did every word he spoke make things worse? Every time you die, everyone forgets you, she said, wiping away the tears. Over and over again. Except you, he replied. You're the only person who knew me before the time loop. I know that's selfish, but you thought I was the only one who could make this eternity less lonely. Len glanced at him with compassion. Is there no way for someone to remember you? To replicate your power? I can only carry my own mind through restarts, and in all these years, I haven't found a technology or genome capable of copying my power. Maybe I could have gotten more results if I crossed a few lines, but I had to keep some. The consequences don't stay, but the memories do. And if I get used to bloodshed and brutality, I'm afraid of what I might become. You're afraid you will become like Dad, she guessed, her gaze hollow. Ryan didn't want to say out loud, but yes, he was. Years around Bloodstream had given him a taste of what sociopathic brutality did to everyone, and how there was no coming back afterward. When you embraced the darkness, it followed you everywhere. Why not ask Dynamis? Len asked, even if she clearly disliked the possibility. They can copy powers. Their knockoffs only get the genetic part of powers, not whatever cosmic physics support them, Ryan replied. That was why their potions were weaker than the original. A firebrand elixir allowed someone to produce fire using their own enhanced body's calories, but a true red genome had access to a near-infinite power source. I mean, unless they can somehow access the purple world, a knockoff elixir based on my genes won't have any effect. His friend said nothing for a few seconds, before finally putting her water gun away and crossing her arms. He had already seen her in that position when she entered a genius fugue state or thought of a new concept. It's happening again, Len lamented, as she failed to come up with an invention that might help Ryan's case. I can make wonders, but nothing that could help right now. Like Dad. It's fine. Just the fact she wanted to help him at all made him feel happier. Nobody can do everything, and you can do a lot already. Even Vulcan admires your work, and she has an ego the size of Saturn. She smiled, thinly, but it didn't reach the eyes. If you don't think there is any solution, and that I will forget this conversation, Len said, looking him dead in the eyes. Why have it at all? The hard question. I don't think there's a solution, no, but I want one to exist. Vulcan is making progress on upgrading powers, and Mechren already could. And there was an entire cache full of his technology below the earth. Hope springs eternal, you know? Even if the chance is slim that I can make people remember me, and that we could make up. I want to try. She didn't reply, her gaze thoughtful. Psyshock will attack this place in 2 days, Ryan changed the subject. Why? Len asked, more saddened than surprised. She must have expected something like that to happen since Big Fat Adam and his crew moved in. There's a bunker full of Mechren tech below the junkyard, and the Meta are trying to break in. Her head immediately snapped at him in alarm. I suppose Psyshock will try to collect the children when they run out of cannon fodder to throw at the defenses. And someone at Dynamis supplies them with knockoff elixirs for a reason that escapes me. Her skin grew paler the more he spoke. I'll take care of this, Ryan promised. I did it before. This city, Len shook her head, glancing at Rust Town and New Rome beyond. It's never going to improve, no matter how much you try. It can. It was bad even before the Meta arrived, she replied. Dynamis, the Augusti, they're all the same. They only care about money and power. I try to make a difference, to help people, but it's just the way things are. This place isn't New Rome, it's the New Babylon. It can improve, Ryan insisted, pointing at the stars. Len, all you see is the dark, but everywhere you look, there's light. Len didn't believe him. We already argued about it, she guessed.
Yeah,
The courier admitted. After our previous talk, I thought I could wipe out the Meta, honor some debts, maybe make the surface good enough that you would want to return. You don't have to, she insisted. Let the Meta and Augusti wipe each other out for all they care. Len, we can't let the Meta get their hands on Mechren's weaponry, Ryan argued back. It will be the genome wars all over again. It would be bloodstream on a countrywide scale. Riri, it's going to destroy you, she argued, a hint of desperation in her voice. It already did. You aren't stable at all, Riri. How many times did you fail? Enough to succeed. She took his words in but offered none of her own. If anything, she seemed to withdraw even more. Well, sorry to burden you with all of this, Ryan apologized, rising up until he stood dangerously close to the edge. One step and it would be a free fall. Thanks for listening, Shorty. Where are you going? There's a nice hotel where I stay in the city center, he replied, putting his mask and hat back on. I need to go there so events proceed favorably. She considered his answer and then said. No. Ryan froze still for a second. No? You can stay here. Len breathed long and deep. It's not comfortable, but you can stay here for the night. Len, I can't. If I don't go to the hotel, Wyvern and Vulcan won't. Stay here, Riri, Len asked, looking up at him. This time, it wasn't a proposal, but a request. Please stay. This time. Ryan opened his mouth to protest, since it would throw his timing in jeopardy, but, when he looked at her pleading eyes, and the worry in them, his resistance melted away. "All right," Ryan said. "I'll stay." 32. Change of plans. Ryan woke up on a terrible mattress, with a cat on his chest. The animal looked at the courier with its big blue eyes, as he emerged from his deep sleep. The Persian cat had a coat of fur of the purest shade of white, and the lazy expression of a creature sleeping 18 hours a day without shame. It was the perfect Bond villain cat. Ryan immediately let out a cry of joy, while the cat looked at him with noble curiosity. "I'm gonna call you." Ryan briefly raised the feline above ground to check if it was a male or female, and then let his imagination do the rest. Eugene Henry von Schrödinger. Eugene Henry meowed in response. "The name sucks," someone complained from the room right next to his, another animal cage repurposed into a prison cell. Ryan recognized the voice as Sarah's. "It sucks hard." "Much like many geniuses, I'm way ahead of my time," Ryan replied, scratching Eugene Henry behind his ears. "You like that name, don't you? You like it, don't you? Is that the white cat?" Sarah peeked into Ryan's private space, finding the courier sitting on his bed sheet, the cat on his lap. The courier promised himself to work on his diabolical mastermind pose, though he needed to get a cashmere suit first. It has a sixth sense to find suckers willing to feed it. That's why it's so fat. Hey, he's not judging you on your appearance. Once, I showed him a rat, like 1 meter away from his face, and that lazy furball didn't even react. Slander. Ryan defended his new sidekick. "Is there a shower though? I think I caught fleas sleeping on that bed." "Yes, but the water is muddy. Ma says she will fix it today after she checks your car." "Check his." "God damn it, I hope she doesn't find the bodies," Ryan said, rising up from the bed. Eugene Henry instantly took over his place and moved below the bed sheet, to better protect the mattress from intruders. "There's a spot for that," little Sarah said casually. "The druggies call it the happy hole." As it turned out, Rust Town did have tourist spots. Ryan started dressing, but immediately noticed something wrong. Namely, his A-bomb was missing, and some of his weapons weren't at their place. Someone had clearly checked on his belongings while he was asleep. Shorty may be willing to help, but she didn't fully trust him yet. The courier emerged from the orphanage to find Len tinkering with his car, having opened the car hood to look inside. She had put the water gun aside, to her right. "Comrade Shorty, just because it's an all-American car doesn't give you the right to wreck it," Ryan said. "Find yourself a Lotta." Len turned her head away from the engine, and Ryan's playful demeanor disappeared instantly when she grabbed the water gun. "Riri, what have you done? What did he do? What didn't he do?" Ryan glanced inside the car hood, his old friend keeping her weapon aimed at his head. Unfortunately, Len had found the brain and jumped to the wrong conclusions. "Riri, have you?" Len clearly didn't want to finish her sentence but forced herself to. "Did you put someone in there? You wouldn't believe how many tries it took before I found the right person." He immediately raised his hands while Len made a mortified face. "Relax, I'm kidding. It's not even sentient." "Riri, don't joke about this," she sputtered, keeping her weapon raised. Sorry, he apologized. "I default to humor when I'm stressed, and I didn't have my morning coffee." Len remained as stiff and grim as ever. "Riri, where did it come from?" "It's vat-grown, a gift from another genius." No answer. "Shorty, I'm not a serial killer, and I don't abduct hobos off the road to experiment on them." "Riri, I want to believe you're not crazy. I really want to." She shook her head. But you keep a thermonuclear device with children nearby. Oh God, if only she knew about the plushie. Len, there are no permanent consequences around me. But what if you're wrong? She asked, biting her lower lip. What if you jump into another universe every time you die, and leave a nuclear crater behind? That's not how my power works, Ryan reassured her. I guarantee you I'm not jumping into an alternate universe whenever I die. I checked. I wouldn't do half the stuff I pull on a weekly basis if I knew I left a mess behind. My power only affects our universe, and all I do is give it an alcohol blackout. That's even scarier, Len said, still struggling to understand his power's full scope. If what you say is correct, then you can rewrite the entire space-time continuum almost at will. It's not mere time manipulation, but reality warping. Yes, Shorty, some people get water guns for Christmas, while I got a fat man, Ryan said, putting a finger on the tip of her gun. So, can you? She hesitated, clearly torn between trusting him and her own fears about him, but eventually lowered the water gun. You will behave while you stay here, Len said. Even if there are no consequences from your point of view, I don't want anything dangerous near the kids. Len, they have guns. Because they need weapons to defend themselves in this shithole, the genius replied. But that nuke, Riri, won't help anyone. It's just death in a can. Okay, I will get rid of it. He would hand it over to Vulcan, as a sign of friendship. Can you give it back then? I swear you will never see that bomb again. She hesitated for a long, agonizing minute, before searching in her jumpsuit and handing him the bomb. Ryan put a hand on it, their gloves brushing against the other. The courier sensed her reluctance to give the weapon away, but she did it. Although Len didn't trust him, she wanted to. He wouldn't disappoint her. Riri, why did you even put your hands on a weapon like that? She asked, as the courier put the bomb inside one of his coat's inner pocket. You really want to know? Len nodded, and Ryan sighed. She wouldn't like his answer. Because I was bored, and I thought it would be fun to have a nuke as a restart button. Can't you automatically restart with your time stop? You said it caused you early restarts. No. When I said an early restart, I meant an early restart. Have you never wondered why I called myself Quick Save? She finally caught on. That's how you save.
Yeah.
By the time the courier had caught on to this mechanism, he had already burnt a lot of bridges. And since I need to commit suicide to get back in time, I figured I should make it interesting. No, of course not, I love living. If he had wanted to die for good, he would have picked a fight with someone like Cancel long ago. As long as I exist, there's always a chance things will improve. After an uncomfortable silence, Len abruptly changed the subject. You slept well? I've slept in way worse places, the courier replied, before shuddering as he remembered one of his worst deaths. Whatever you do, Len, don't sleep in Monaco. Monaco? Why? Shorty, I come from the future. Don't go to Monaco. He glanced at the car, and a flustered Len started putting the engine pieces back in their proper place. Should I expect a mounted water turret? Please tell me that you added a gadget. I was just checking the chronoradio and its associated parts. Only then did Ryan notice that while she had stopped pointing it at his face, Len kept the gun in hand. Baby steps. Pretty good tech, huh? Ryan boasted about his car, putting a hand on the hood. You're the last genius in a long line to work on this baby. I saw that. There's a lot I could work with, actually. Len closed the hood once her work done. Riri, why did you hook up a miniature particle accelerator to your radio? That was such a long story. Ryan worked many loops and decades on that particular quest. The purple world is something of a crossroad, not only between time and space but between various dimensions, the courier explained. You know, some violet genomes summon creatures like that monster from Alien? Or Gremlins? They're pulling them from these dimensions? Yes. Most of these universes radically differ from our own, but some are alternate histories Earth could have taken. Usually, these histories aren't stable and constantly fluctuate, only becoming real when observed. I don't follow you. Well, we humans think time is stable, that the past is set in stone, but in truth, it's like the water you love so much, ever-changing. Ryan's experience had taught him as much. I mean, I just have to jump back and poof, it changes. Have you never considered, Len trailed off with a worried frown, unable to say it out loud, that I destroy the universe and everyone in it when I die? I try not to think about it. If only because of the horrors involved. It was a rabbit hole of depression, questionable ethics, and self-misery. He preferred to think of it as a universal memory wipe. Anyway, I thought the chronoradio could help me locate a specific reality, and then cross over. A timeline where things went well for us, Len guessed. Yes, Ryan replied with a sigh, opening his car's door. But I never found a way to reach an alternate Earth, even with a custom particle accelerator. All I can do with the chronoradio is listen to what could have been. You're going? She asked with a worried frown. Did she think he would get himself killed? Then again, they were close to the junkyard. What about that undead madman in the back seat? I'm supposed to receive a recruitment offer from Wyvern and then Vulcan, but I'm not sure if she will follow through if I'm in Rust Town. After that, I need to have my windshield cleaned, and Bone Daddy will become someone else's problem. Wyvern? Len answered with a deeper frown than before. I heard Dynamis jailed you, so I investigated, Ryan admitted. What happened exactly? They use the citizens of Rust Town as underpaid labor in their factories, Len said with anger. They pay them for dangerous work with just enough euros to feed themselves, but provide neither healthcare nor safety guidelines. 1 out of 5 people gets maimed or killed. I don't think Il Miglior supports these practices. Even the junior heroes he had met during the seminar seemed more self-obsessed than actively malicious. They turn their eyes away from the real problems. Len shook her head. Not all criminals wear masks. Most wear suits and ties. Since nobody would stand up for this place, I did. So you attacked one of Dynami's installations? The chemical plant, she gave more details, her face turning grimmer. But, they caught me. Somebody ratted me out and led the private security to my old workshop. One of the people you tried to fight for? Ryan guessed, his friend nodding. I'm sorry. I guess people always try to take the easy way out. Len shook her head. Wyvern didn't bust me out, Vulcan did. And even then, it wasn't for free. I had to help the Augusti transport their drug, take their blood money. Well, I don't intend to go to Dynamis this time, Ryan reassured her. I see only one way to kill Psyshock permanently, and it's an Augusti exclusive option as far as I can tell. Len clearly didn't like the idea. Even if she collaborated with Vulcan, she clearly had no love for her organization. We could capture him, she said. From what you told me, he has to die for his ability to activate. If he's smart, he will have a suicide button. Hopefully, it wouldn't be a thermonuclear device. Besides making the world a better place, taking down Psyshock would also prevent him from piloting that Mechren mech later on. And while I don't believe it, Vulcan says she can enhance my power. Unless you have another suggestion, they seem like our best option. Unfortunately, she didn't have any alternative. I need more time, Riri. Time to figure this out. Figure out my power, or us. Both, Len replied while looking away. I want to help you, Riri. I really do. No one else should have to go through what you did. Thanks, Ryan said with genuine warmth. The fact that you want to help at all means a lot to me. She blushed a little. But the thing is, Riri, even if we succeed in helping you, I'm not sure if there will be a we after that. We. That word had brought back memories of the time when Ryan believed they had a future together. He thought his feelings for Len had changed after so many restarts, moved past the realm of teenage romance. But every time he looked at his old partner, the courier always wondered what could have been. And what could never be. There are things I can't forget, Riri, she admitted. My father, that stuff with the bomb. You don't feel safe around me, Ryan stated the obvious. Like bloodstream. Len shook her head sadly, and the courier drove away in silence. So, let me get this straight, Shroud joined his fingers, like an evil mastermind. There is a cache of Mecran technology below the junkyard, which the Meta Gang is trying to access. And Dynamis supplies them with knockoff elixirs, contacts, and weapons. Meow, that's right, Ryan replied, keeping Eugene Henry in his arms, while Ghoul's skull snarled inside a glass box. The courier briefly wondered if it was possible to waterboard on a head without the lungs, but pushed the thought aside. Shroud remained silent for a moment. This is concerning. What an understatement. Ryan tried to top it. And the Titanic had a leak. The glass genome turned around and started typing on his computer, various documents appearing on the screen. Ryan recognized them as financial statements, supply run reports, and logistical analyses. Shroud ran a program, apparently noticing a few troubling elements. There are some strange gaps between the stated numbers of knockoff elixirs Dynamis produces, and what's actually sold in their stores, said the hacker. I thought they were a statistical error margin or thefts, but it could easily disguise off-the-books deliveries to the Meta. Could it be disguised by mooks or managers? Psyshock could have brainwashed a few employees, subverting Dynamis without their knowledge, though the lack of attack on the company's operations made that unlikely. Not without complicity from an executive, Mr. Windshield replied. They keep a tight ship on these potions. Maybe Blackthorn then. Unlikely, said the Safelight advertisement. From what I know, he's clean. Have you seen his office and costume? Ryan asked, Eugene Henry meowing. He's obviously a diabolical mastermind. What about his office? It looks great. Clearly, he had spied on the place. Do you know why Blackthorn ended up as brand manager and in charge of Il Migliore? Because Hector Monada only trusts his sons. Partly, but while Il Migliore's heroes do fight crime in New Rome, they don't wage war against truly dangerous genome warlords like Augustus or decide Dynamis' future. Their true job is to serve as the company's face and follow directives, not make them. Enrique's position is prestigious, but not one with much power. I see where this is going, and not just because you're translucent. Enrique Monada was groomed to become Dynamis' vice president, until he started openly pushing for social reforms and Rust Town's redevelopment, Shroud explained. The board sacked him, and the chairman decided to select his brother Alphonse as the VP instead. It backfired when Hector had to send Alphonse to wage war in Sicily to avoid a clash with Augustus, but you see my point. Well, Blackthorn still looks like a comic book villain. You're the one looking like a villain with that cat. Why did you bring it here, by the way? Because Ryan was a cat person, as Felix could attest. It's a Schrodinger's cat, he increases my power twofold. Don't you need to use a black box first? Shroud deadpanned, before turning serious. Unfortunately, I have no proof except your word on the bunker question. Psyshock is going to attack the orphanage soon, you can ask him yourself then. If he survives. You think she will show up? Shroud asked. Clearly, he had mind reading on top of his glass control. No, that was a stupid question. Of course she will, it's a golden opportunity to strike at the meta. If the Augusti trust your intel. Well, if she doesn't we will have to put PSY in an aquarium, like the squid he is. Ryan shrugged. Any hope we team up to attack the junkyard? I would do it on my own, but something tells me it will be a blast. We won't have the numbers to directly challenge the meta gang for some time, Shroud admitted. This confirmed Ryan's suspicion that he was only the vanguard, with the rest of his team scheduled to arrive later. But if I confirm your information, then we will have to. Adam getting his hands on Mekran's technology will cause a disaster. Just to be sure, Mekran isn't behind everything? No, he's very dead. Are you sure? Leo was there when he perished, the glass manipulator replied. Mekran is as dead as they come, and unless he has a hidden clone in storage, he isn't coming back. Not from that. Was that a little unease Ryan detected in his voice? Mekran's demise must have been something disturbing to bother the hardened assassin. Come on, give me the gory details. You will have to ask Leo himself, Invisiboy refused to indulge the courier. I will hold up our end of the bargain, and help defend the orphanage if you can't get the Augusti on board. In return, please don't tell them about the junkyard. If there really is a Mekran bunker beneath New Rome, it should remain buried. Afraid Mob Zeus finds a bag of flour inside? Even you must understand it won't end well if he gets his hands on Mekran's technology. Ryan shrugged and left the meeting with the path ahead clear. He would go to the Bakudo, but instead of pretending to look for Len, he would instead tell Zanbato he wanted to fight the meta gang and that he didn't trust Dynamis to do that. With luck, Ryan might secure a big surprise for Psyshock. However, although he hadn't noticed, Shroud gave the courier a key piece of information that greatly worried him. You will have to ask Leo. Namely, that Leo Hargraves would come to New Rome, probably with the rest of the carnival in tow. If Ryan cross-referenced that tidbit with information gathered in the previous loops, then he had 3 weeks before the Living Sun and Augustus settled their rivalry in blood. Ryan had better not be in New Rome by then. 33, Black Swan. It was May 10th, Psyshock would attack the orphanage any minute, and Ryan intended to give the telepath a headache he would never forget. A shotgun in hand and the Fisty brothers equipped, the courier prowled the orphanage's hallways, where the kids were busy gathering food and toys in travel bags. To his worry though, he found no trace of Len. What's happening? Ryan asked little Julia, upon crossing paths with her. Unlike her fellow orphans, who had taken food or toys, the little blonde mostly carried books on herself. Meeting this child after learning what Psyshock did to her in a previous loop only reinforced the courier's resolve. Mama says she's taking us to the magical place early, she explained, looking down instead of facing the genome's eyes. She seemed far shyer than Sarah. So we have to pack our stuff. Wise. No doubt Hanifat Lecter would attack the place again with larger numbers after his pet squid bit the dust here. Hopefully, Ryan would receive backup. The courier had informed Jamie of the attack when they met at the Bakudo, even giving him the A-bomb as a bribe for Vulcan to sweeten the deal. He provided all the intel necessary, though Ryan couldn't be certain if the information would pass through the chain of command until the moment of truth. Where is she? The genome asked. The courier could take out PSY and his group on his own easily enough if he cut loose, but he couldn't prevent the body jumper from transferring himself. She's in her room. We shouldn't bother her. Well, I've bothered her since the day we met, Ryan replied, leaving Julia behind and moving towards Len's bedroom. From what he had understood, it used to be the office of the shelter's director, before they left the place to rust. He knocked on the door, receiving no answer. While it was locked, the courier had long mastered the art of breaking and entering. "Len," he asked after unlocking the door, finding the bedroom shrouded in thick darkness. "Shorty?" Only a meowing sound answered him. Ryan quickly flipped the light switch and found himself facing a giant diver suit. The same one Len wore when she tried to rescue him from acid rain. "Shorty?" Ryan asked, before looking behind the armor. He found Len sitting on a chair next to a mattress, staring at a wall. When he took a step forward, the genome almost tripped on a medicine box, noticing dozens on the floor. "Shorty?" No answer. Len just stared blankly at the wall, while Eugene Henry von Schrödinger rested on her lap. Her eyes were blackened by sleeplessness and exhaustion. She looked dead. "Len? Len?" When he received no answer, the courier approached a free hand from her shoulder, intending to shake her back to consciousness. "Don't." Her sudden reaction startled both Ryan and the cat on her lap. It was as if she had woken up from a nightmare. Len then put her hands on her ears, as if struggling against a terrible headache. "Don't come closer." It reminded Ryan of the first time they met again under the sea, except somehow even worse. The courier said nothing, glancing at the boxes on the ground. He grabbed one, finding it empty. "Len," Ryan said with dead seriousness, tossing the empty container on the bed. "If you weren't a genome, you would have overdosed from all these pills. If I didn't have powers, I wouldn't need so many of them." It's true genomes had an enhanced metabolism, but still, do you know these medications shouldn't be taken together? No answer. "You aren't following any treatment," Ryan realized, horrified. "If I don't take them, I don't want to do anything," Len snapped. Clearly, her mood had worsened, perhaps due to the wrong drug combination. "If I don't take them, I can't talk to you at all. I don't want to do anything except use my power." She couldn't even interact with others except under heavy medication. How many did she take under the sea? Did the fact they met in her sanctum make it worse back then? Seeing his friend deteriorating that much horrified Ryan, but he didn't know what to say. I'm coming," Len finally spoke up, massaging her forehead. "I'll put on the suit. I have to. I can take care of Psyshock alone if it's too much for you." No, can't let you do everything," she replied, struggling to form a complete sentence. "I have to help. I have to." "All right, I will keep watch until you're ready then." Ryan left to give her some breathing room, though he did notice something on the bed on his way out. The rough schematics of some kind of sonar, although messy and incomplete. Len must have worked on this new device during the day. The courier walked outside the orphanage, stopping at the threshold. His car was parked nearby, Ryan remembering how Sarah and her friend had stood at the exact same spot in a previous loop. However, when he saw Psyshock's black minibus approach, Ryan decided to spice things up a little this time. He raised the shotgun and hit the wheels at the front, causing the Meta's car to spiral around itself in an attempt to avoid a crash. "Strike!" Ryan gloated for good measure. "It's a strike!" The driver managed to stabilize the minibus, much to his disappointment. Ryan heard heavy footsteps behind him, Len emerging from the orphanage in her full power armor. She carried a water thrower as her main weapon, clearly determined to defend the orphans. As Psyshock stepped out of the minibus, wearing his disguise, Ryan relaxed a bit. The brainjacker had only brought Mosquito and Mongrel with him, like in the previous loop. No heavy hitters in sight. "Little Cesare," Psyshock said, removing his sunglasses to reveal his biomechanical eyes. "And is that little Len too? I could recognize her work anywhere. Is your father joining us from beyond the grave too?" Len remained eerily silent, radiating a sense of unease. If you want, I've got old-time slides, Ryan mocked Psyshock. Half of them are dedicated to your royal ass-kicking. You were not so brave during our last encounter when my wires connected to your brain, Psyshock replied, his tone heavy with menace. Though we only came for the goblins in that shelter, this is a good day indeed. It is true what they say, you never forget those who got away. So are we killing them or what? Mosquito asked while Mongrel showed his teeth. The smell of their blood drives me crazy. No one will die today, Psyshock replied, his wire tentacles wriggling below his coat. They are mine, both of them. Always have been. Len raised her water thrower without a word. You wish to fight, little girl? Psyshock mocked them. Check your math, you are outnumbered, outmatched. Check yours, psy, Ryan replied, noticing a white Yamaha motorcycle approaching from behind. It's a ménage à trois. A blonde woman rode at the vehicle's back, without wearing any helmet, though she did carry a genius tech staff, like a knight showing up for a jousting tournament. She abruptly stopped her vehicle upon reaching the orphanage's courtyard, her mere presence changing the psycho's mood from confident to tense. Hi, guys. Cancel introduced herself with a winning smile, leaving her bike behind while swinging her weapon. Nice to meet you. Psyshock's electronic eyes let out a brief flash of light, his cronies flinching in dread. Hey, don't look at her like that, Ryan said, raising his shotgun. I wanted Pluto, but she declined. Psyshock's power was not so different from the courier's own ability. A save point allowing them to try again after death. Ergo, they probably shared the same weaknesses. As he realized the danger, Psyshock did something new and unexpected. Something he had never done in the previous loops, no matter how suicidal the situation. He tried to run away, tearing through his clothes with his tentacles while his cronies attacked Cancel. Gotcha. Ryan froze time, raised his shotgun, and blasted Psyshock's tentacles apart. When time resumed, the brainjacker pathetically tripped and fell onto his smug face. Don't worry, haven't you looked at the dog shelter sign? Ryan taunted him. Euthanasia is free. Meanwhile, moving with the speed and agility of an Olympic gymnast, Cancel quickly rushed at Mongrel. The psycho attempted to incinerate her with his hands, but the flames fizzled out into nothingness at the tip of his fingers. The hitwoman impaled him through the chest with her staff before he could react, the device then letting out a powerful electric shock. Ryan would have likened it to a taser, but a taser didn't fry its victim alive the way Cancel's device did. Meanwhile, Mosquito attempted to fly away, but Len opened fire at him. A jet of pressurized water came out of her weapon, slicing his left wing clean and causing the overgrown insect to crash. Ryan immediately tossed the shotgun aside and attacked Mosquito with Fisty, beating the tar out of him. When the bug attempted to raise his fist to retaliate, Len cut off his arm with her water weapon. Shorty, do you have insecticide? Ryan shouted, pounding Mosquito onto the ground. My fly swatter isn't working right. Len didn't respond. While she was no stranger to brutality and didn't hesitate to use lethal force when needed, the genius usually retreated into her own mind in a fight. Unlike Ryan, she didn't thrive in chaos. Meanwhile, having fried Mongrel to death, Cancel immediately moved on to Psyshock. The psycho attempted to rise back up, but the hitwoman swiftly caught up with him. Her power clearly didn't affect the telepath's physical mutations, so Ryan supposed it only canceled the esoteric power sources which supported them. Look at me, Cancel asked Psyshock, her tone always positive. Look at me in the eyes. I want to remember your face. The malevolent psycho glared at the hit woman, raising his remaining tentacles in an attempt to hit her skull. But he didn't react fast enough. Cancel swiftly impaled PSY through the skull with the staff, pounding his head into a smear on the ground. Some of the psycho's blood ended up on her cheek, her smirk turning downright sadistic while the wires flailed around. Ryan briefly checked his time stop and failed to activate it. So far so good. A few seconds later, Mosquito looked like a crushed bug at his feet, still alive, but bleeding to death. Cancel had swiftly murdered the other two. Well, that was quick, Ryan noted, slightly disappointed. He guessed Vulcan's absence, the surprise ambush, and having two professionals at his back had made quite the difference. You know, I had orders to kill everyone if it turned out to be a trap, but I'm so glad I didn't have to, Greta said with a cheery smile, tossing Psyshock's immobile corpse aside with her staff. His blood was still on her cheek, and she seemed in no hurry to wipe it off. I've been getting rusty. Thank you, but didn't anyone tell you that I was immortal? You're funny, she replied, leaving Psyshock's remains and looking at Mosquito. He's still alive? Unless he gets medical treatment, he won't last long. Please, Mosquito pleaded. Too much work, Cancel replied, stomping on his face with her staff. Len visibly flinched at her casual brutality, catching Greta's attention. Who are you? It was so strange to hear Len's gentle voice come out of the giant armor. The Underdiver. Oh, nice to meet you, I'm Greta. You already said that before, Ryan thought. He realized her lines weren't spontaneous at all, but rehearsed. Is there anyone else to deal with? No, we're good, Ryan replied. All right, I hope we meet again then. Me too, Greta. Ryan replied with the same cheery smile. You're the nicest sociopath I've met yet. Thanks. What's a sociopath? Ryan answered her question with 2 thumbs up. Cancel waved them.
Goodbye.
And left on her motorcycle as swiftly as she came, leaving the psycho's corpses to rot. Clearly, she had a lot of experience with casual murder. Ryan wondered what her CV looked like. She's hollow inside, Len said when the hitwoman was gone. Before Ryan could respond, he sensed an invisible pressure on his shoulders. The land's gaze had suddenly fallen upon him. The courier waved a hand at the skies, wondering if the psycho would see him. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but it made Len almost stumble at the sheer tension. What was that? Peepers, Ryan replied. I suggest we move out before more arrive. Yes, Len turned towards the orphanage and raised her voice. Sarah, Julia. All windows in the vicinity, the Plymouth Fury's windshield included, cracked at once. It's okay, it's my fault, Ryan lied before Len could panic. Fortunately, she was used to weird events around him and didn't question it. Sarah, Julia, gather the others, we're leaving now. Ma, can we take the doggies? A little girl shouted back from within. I'm sorry, sweetie, but no, we can't. We'll leave the pens open, so they can go out. Len turned to Ryan. Thanks, Riri. No problem. Do you need any help moving them to safety? It's a long way to the harbor. It's fine, I keep transporting bathyspheres in the sewers, and there's an access point in the basement, she explained. That explained how she could move in and out of the orphanage undetected. Riri, It's okay, the courier reassured her, knowing what would come next. It's your home, I understand you don't want me in it yet. Last time had been something of a surprise visit. Len must have made a guilty face behind her helmet, though Ryan couldn't see through. I think I've found something. For your power. The courier froze still. Come again? I've been listening through your chronoradio for a while, she admitted. Now that I examined it more closely, there's a part of the design where my power can help. The navigation. I'm sorry, I need more time to really explore it. I need to focus. It's just an idea in my head right now, and I'm not sure if it will work. If it can work at all. Don't get your hopes up or any tea. Shorty, I've been through so many false hopes, you could make a graveyard out of them. Ryan shook his head. As I told you before, the mere fact you want to help after everything means the world to me. Len seemed too flustered beneath her armor to answer. I guess I will contact you, she said, sounding embarrassed. SCU, Riri. Len, he said while she turned away to go back inside. Please be careful with your medicine. Len stood still for a moment, unsure of what to say. I will, she said. Don't worry, I can manage. Ryan couldn't tell if it was a lie, or if she believed it. The courier sighed, watching her disappear inside with a heavy heart. You owe me a new windshield, Ryan said once Len was out of earshot. I apologize, Shroud answered next to him, as invisible as ever. She startled me and I lost control for an instant. You're afraid of little girls? I would have said pigeons were your kryptonite. I'm looking for someone with the same name, the vigilante explained. Julia Costa. But it's not that girl. The age, face, and body don't match. I know she's somewhere in the city, but I have no lead yet. What happened to your Julia? Ryan asked with curiosity. He also noted that Shroud could apparently see the orphans through the walls. Augustus murdered her parents and kidnapped her as a child, to use as a hostage against Leo. A chill went down Ryan's spine. Whenever you have doubts, remember that this is what the Augusti stand for. I will look into it, the courier promised. What does she look like? She should be around 15, light brown hair, blue eyes. That was better than nothing, but barely. You're not really Cesare Sabino, are you? The way you interact with Ms. Sabino isn't very brotherly. Oh my, it just took you 4 years to figure it out? What a detective you are. I dare not imagine what went through Bloodstream's head. It must have been harsh. It was more emotion than Ryan had ever heard coming from the invisible man's mouth. You love her? I did once. But a rift had grown so wide, Ryan would be lucky to end up on speaking terms with Len after his perfect run. But that was a long time ago. All men are hopeless fools, a friend once told me. Unfortunately, I don't have any advice to offer. I'm unlucky in love myself. I guess they see right through you. Ryan shook his head. I help because she's a dear friend and she needs it. He wasn't looking for romance anymore, but for a human connection, any connection, that would persist through his endless restarts. The courier felt something on his shoulder, like a brief, sympathetic pat. It was well done, Mr. Looking-Glass said. I thought I might have to intervene, but you had the situation in hand. I will check if Psyshock is truly gone for good, though I would suggest getting away from Rust Town. I get the feeling you threw a wrench in Adam's plans, and he won't like it. Oh, he didn't. Ryan already noticed acidic clouds expanding from the junkyard. Perhaps Wyvern's absence had made the metagang bolder, or Cancel's power had truly prevented Psyshock's body transfer. In any case, Ryan was just getting started. Game on, Moby Dick. 34, hit and run. The current loop might be the calmest yet. Ryan had finally optimized the Augusti path. He first completed the harbor mission without incident. Fat Adam didn't send anyone for once, and Ryan had previously taken care of Luigi. The truth teller was scheduled to get out of the hospital on Wednesday, but Ryan intended to score a few goals during the hockey match's second period. Afterward, Jamie invited the courier to crash at his place, and he received a surprise inspection from Pluto. The underboss interrogation had been less thorough this time around, since the intel Ryan provided on Psyshock had earned him some measure of trust. The courier then landed a job as Vulcan's assistant, who had lobbied very hard to recruit him after she got her hands on his A-bomb. She didn't even ask him to trash Wyvern's movie this loop. Ryan had waited patiently for today's Rust Town raid. He had provided all the necessary information for the Augusti to improve their odds, from the land's range to the powers of every psycho he fought so far. He didn't say anything linked to the bunker like the mech, but overall, things looked bright. Truly, Ryan was pumped for this restart. Plasmator, Ryan handed Vulcan her tool before she could finish her sentence, the genius too busy working on her armor's cannon. Wrench. Ryan handed her a wrench and a cup of coffee. I didn't ask for a cup, she said. You were about to. Vulcan stopped in the middle of her welding, putting her tools aside and raising her iron mask. A short silence took over her workshop as she examined the courier from head to toe. Ryan, where have you been hiding all this time? Mostly behind explosions, and sometimes forest fires. I should have hired you years ago, she said without any hint of sarcasm. You're the best assistant I could ever hope for. Hell, you anticipate my desires as if you read my mind before I spoke. You're perfect, except for one thing. Vulcan pointed a finger at the white cat having taken over her workbench. Eugene Henry meowed in response. Why did you bring that furball here? She asked Ryan. I couldn't leave it at the shelter. It's a noble cat, it can't survive in the wild. No, I mean, why did you leave it in my armory as if he lived there? Now half the guards spend their shift petting it when they think I'm not looking. It's distracting them. Ki-young doesn't want him at the house. I keep telling her Eugene Henry is too good to hunt rats, but she won't hear anything. Ryan grabbed the cat and showed him to Vulcan. Admit it, you can't resist him either. Look at him. Look at his big, beautiful eyes. The genius didn't look impressed. If he causes an accident, I'm taking the repair costs out on your pay, Vulcan said, before grabbing the cat. She put it on her lap and moved her feet on the workbench. I had a ferret once. He wasn't afraid of anything. What happened to him? He wasn't afraid of cars either, Vulcan replied with a morbid face. She liked her comedy pitch black. Speaking of animals, about that rabbit plushie. No, Ryan interrupted her. But. No. Do I have to take it at gunpoint? She threatened, her curiosity too overwhelming. You would have an easier time with my virginity, but spoiler warning, Ryan whispered in the genius' ear, it's long gone. Vulcan chuckled, scratching Eugene Henry between the ears. I thought you were dating the underdiver.
Oh no.
It will be a miracle if we settle into anything. Considering her issues, a long-distance radio friendship sounded more likely. Though it would take a genius to steal my wounded heart. I would be careful with that smart mouth of yours, Ryan, she replied playfully, his good mood infecting her too. What's up with you today? Is it the raid? Of course it's the raid, I can tell it's going to be great. Especially now that PSY had perished for good. Within 1 hour of his demise, dozens of people across New Rome had experienced brain seizures, including some Augusti mooks and private security members. The Augusti leadership had tasked Ki-young to investigate, and from what she told Ryan, most of the victims missed entire days of their life. By nullifying Psyshock's powers at close range, Cancel had undone his victims' brainwashing. Since that squid hadn't been sighted since the orphanage ambush, Ryan assumed he had perished for good. The Meta hadn't sent Saren to attack the harbor, and according to Shroud, they hadn't tried to press Gang Polly either. This implied Psyshock's brainwashing was Big Fat Adam's main source of unpowered foot soldiers, and his demise had cost the Meta a lot of resources. So yes, Ryan was in an excellent mood. You've got a hate-on for psychos, Vulcan mused out loud. I've heard what you told Jamie. That they received knockoffs from Dynamis. And you believe me? So far most of his acquaintances among the Augusti considered it a conspiracy theory. She nodded. Lab 66. You know the Dynamis HQ, next to Il Miglior's shiny tower? They make the knockoffs on the 66th floor. It's the most defended place in New Rome. Well, that's not ominous at all. Is there a pentacle on the door? No, but the head scientist is a creepy four-eyed maniac who calls himself Dr. Tyranno. Vulcan snickered. He cloned all the dinosaurs you see at the Colosseum Maximus. It's not even his genius specialty, he's just obsessed with them. I'm pretty sure he only works at Dynamis because they let him make more of those reptiles. Anyway, you know that bastard Enrique? I'll never know why nobody suspects him to be a supervillain out to take over the world. Ryan shrugged. I mean, he has Thorn in his genome name. I said the exact same thing to Wyvern the first time we met him. Finally, someone else saw the truth. Originally, Enrique was supposed to oversee the whole elixir operation instead of Il Miglior. He visited the lab for 2 hours, and he immediately asked for a transfer afterward. Never learned why. If you ask me, there's something really shifty about the knockoffs. Even Augustus scientists never found a way to copy them. Ryan quickly grasped her point. You think Dynamis uses the meta as guinea pigs? That's something Hector Monada would do, Vulcan replied with a sharp nod. Augustus is brutally direct, but Hector, he's slippery and insidious. He always manages to be where the evidence isn't. Unfortunately, I doubt we'll find any proof of his involvement, and the big boss doesn't seem interested in an open conflict yet. I'm surprised that the war between them is cold instead of hot, to be honest. Ryan thought an invincible man would be far bolder. They fought over Malta a few years ago, Vulcan explained. Dynamis nuked it in an attempt to kill Augustus, who retaliated by sinking the island. Afterward, the big boss met with Hector Monada, and they hashed out a peace agreement. If there was a peace agreement, then it meant Dynamis had some kind of leverage over their opposition. Perhaps they threatened Augustus' family or inner circle. Ryan had faced the same tactic while he lived under Bloodstream's clutches. Even near-invincible genomes had emotional weaknesses. The party is on Thursday night, right? Vulcan asked while changing the subject, though her question was purely rhetorical. If the assault on the Meta's base goes well, I think I will attend. Should be fun. Shame I'm too old for that now. Like the first time Ryan met him, Mortimer attempted to startle the courier from behind and utterly failed. I would have killed it on the dance floor. I'm sure you will catch up on Halloween, Ryan replied by turning around, pointing a finger at the hitman's skull mask. Nobody gives poor Mortimer candies, Mr. Walpass replied, saddened by the lack of reaction. He doesn't spook anyone nowadays. You're early, Vulcan noted with a frown. Did something happen? Well, there are fires coming out of Rust Town, Chief. I thought you should know. As it turned out, the Meta had set the junkyard on fire. Ryan stopped his Plymouth Fury right in front of the fence. Mr. Walpass sat on the front seat, Fortuna, and Cancel at the back. Oh my, Mortimer said. They don't half-ass things, these psychos. No kidding. Ryan could only see flames everywhere he looked. The Meta had set alight the trash mountains with gasoline, turning them into candles, while clouds of smoke darkened the skies. Although the blazing inferno remained localized inside the junkyard, it might soon spread to the rest of Rust Town if left unchecked. Vulcan landed in full power armor next to Ryan's vehicle, just as shocked as everyone else. Their troops had surrounded the area without meeting any resistance either from unpowered gunmen or psychos. What the hell happened? I checked what a sociopath was, Cancel told Ryan, completely unconcerned by the giant bonfire. That was mean. But was it wrong? Ryan asked back, his eyes focused on the flames. Did they blow up the bunker or something? No, but it was mean. Sparrow, report, Vulcan ordered through the intercom. Any sign of the meta? Our lookouts told me Adam, Frank, Saren and a few others are driving north on the old highway. Apparently, they're skipping town. They're fleeing? Cancel asked, immediately disappointed. But we only killed 3 of them. No fun, I wanted those sweet bounties for my mortgage, Mortimer complained. Told you it would be a piece of cake, Fortuna replied, too busy typing on her phone to pay attention. I can't believe it, Vulcan said. They're leaving? Why? Ryan couldn't understand either. He didn't believe for a second that Hannafat Lecter had truly given up, but why leave the bunker behind and make a show of destroying the junkyard? Was there another Eccentric? The submarine. That cunning bastard, Ryan muttered to himself. The bunker had a hidden sea access route, so the meta could easily hide below ground and resupply while abandoning the surface. As long as the bunker's existence remained a secret, the psychos could credibly stay under the radar until they unlocked Mecrin's tech. Fat Adam would leave through the front door, and sneak back in through the back one. Still, the fact that they pulled this stunt at all reeked of desperation. Psyshock must have been more important to their plans than Ryan thought, for his demise to shake things up that much. Something to say, quick save? Vulcan asked him, having eavesdropped on his outburst. Maybe this is an elaborate ploy and they have secretly retreated to an underground base below the city, Ryan said. I'm sure they have a doomsday weapon, like a moon-defacing laser. Or maybe they have a base on the moon, Fortuna chuckled. I went to the moon once, Mortimer said. It was made of lead. Ryan didn't clear things up. The current matter made him feel conflicted. While he shamelessly flirted with her, Vulcan did try to murder him a previous loop while fully expecting to get away with it. Augustus had a reputation for brutality, and if Shroud's story was true, then nothing good would come out of him discovering the bunker. Even if the meta getting their hands on Mecrin's tech remained the worst scenario, he was wary of letting the Augusti do the same until he knew more. Well, he could always inform them and reload later. However, the second the thought crossed his mind, Ryan immediately thought of Len. He was finally making progress in renewing their friendship, and he was afraid of falling back into his old patterns. If he continued on the path of the perfect run, then he would have to repeat these meetings again and again, until they lost all meaning. Should he save and commit? But if he did that, then he condemned all the people the meta threw at the bunker's defenses. The face of that terrified prisoner, carried around by Adam like a sandwich, still haunted the courier, mostly because it reminded him of his own while he was Bloodstream's pet. Ryan still had enough empathy to feel bad about that part. So while he hadn't told Len, there was a strong possibility he would have to restart anyway to keep the kill count at a minimum. But he had confessed everything, and she would forget again if he returned to the past. Arg, indecision paralysis. Consequences suck. Ryan shouted out of nowhere, drawing a few gazes. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. I'm so disappointed too, Cancel complained, sharing his frustration at not being able to kick the meta's butt. I didn't think killing 3 of them would scare them away. When you murder junkies are done whining, maybe we could call this a day and leave? Fortuna asked. I've got a date, and I'm sure he's the one. You say that every time, Sparrow pointed out, although she said it with a hint of jealousy. You go through boyfriends like Kleenexes. It's different this time, Fortuna insisted. My power keeps forcing us to meet. He shows up to help after that gas leak almost destroys my apartment. I drop my books and he helps me gather them back. It starts raining and we have to stay under the same bus stop. He's the one, I tell you. You just say that because you had to pester him 5 times until he caved in, and you can't stand being ignored, Mortimer mocked her. Morty. Wait, how did you know I asked 5 times? Did you spy on me? Your pain is nectar for my wizened soul. Ryan ignored them, trying to puzzle a way out of the situation, but the indecision paralyzed him. A suboptimal route for New Rome might allow him to keep his friendship with Len real, but a perfect run would save dozens of lives, if not hundreds. Should he risk letting the Meta access Mecran's bunker in the hope of a better alternative to appear, or should he trust the Augusti to be responsible? Should he inform Wyvern? For the first time in centuries, Ryan faced mutually exclusive consequences, and it frustrated him. He needed more time to figure this out. Vulcan, do we give pursuit? Sparrow cut through the chit-chat. I'm torn, Vulcan admitted. I'm itching to test my new armor, but it could be a feint to lead us into a trap, and our job was to retake Rust Town. Which we did. If the Meta are wise enough not to get in our way, let them cower, Fortuna said, clearly determined to do as little as possible. Not even a little wedgie, for old time's sake? Ryan asked, calming down. No matter the eventual fate of this loop, the Meta had to die for the good of everyone else. I could settle for killing, say, half of them. It's the respect and territory that matter, quick save, Vulcan replied. They will come back later if you let them go, Ryan argued. He had seen what underestimating the Meta had cost them in the previous loops. Trust someone who has fought Big Walleye before, that bonfire is a mere smokescreen. Vulcan listened to his words carefully. You think this is a ploy to lull us into a false sense of security? And that if we let Adam go, he will come back to fuck us harder? And he won't be gentle. That's a bit paranoid, Mortimer replied with a shrug. If you ask my poor old me, they bit more than they could chew and chickened out. Quicksave's intel has been spotless so far, Sparrow came to Ryan's defense. I don't think Adam the Ogre will give up so easily either. The Meta clearly came to New Rome to fight us, perhaps as mercenary work from our rivals. If they're switching from territory grab to hit-and-run tactics, they might remain a problem for months. Vulcan considered the various viewpoints, before coming to a decision. Sparrow, you and your men give pursuit, I want to know the Meta gang's location at all times. I will join you to harass them from a safe distance with long-range weaponry. Understood, Sparrow replied. The rest of you kids will deal with the fire before it spreads to the rest of Rust Town, Vulcan told the genomes in the Plymouth Fury. We can't do business there if all our clients burn to death, so I will direct you to the nearest fire hydrants. Mortimer, make sure the Meta didn't leave any booby traps behind. What? Fortuna looked up from her phone. Why do we have to do it? Don't they have firefighters? I start fires, I don't extinguish them, Ryan protested. It's against my religion. Too bad, God doesn't sign your paychecks, I do, Vulcan replied, before flying away. Get to work. How brazen of you to say that. Everyone groaned at Ryan's joke, much to his silent amusement. He hoped he hadn't made the wrong choice. 35, pre-party. Ryan loved genome parties. They always involved a lot of property damage. He had attended a few elsewhere in Italy, usually when he joined a group. However, this one looked like it would be the biggest yet, and since tomorrow would mark Quicksave's first week in New Rome, the courier intended to cap it off with a bang. Well, he had probably spent 2 months or so in the city across various loops, but still. This party might be something entirely new and surprising. How many people will come? Ryan asked, having traded his usual trench coat, hat, and mask for a classy, dark purple suit. While Ki-young had insisted he could dress casually, the genome would settle for nothing less than the best outfit in the room. You couldn't half-ass elegance. Oh, no more than 100, Ki-young replied, her fingers fidgeting in anxiety. She had traded her glasses for contact lenses, and her modest clothes for a sleeveless black dress. Her boyfriend meanwhile wore a simple blue shirt and black pants. "Do you want more tuna pizzas?" Lanka asked while on the sofa while typing on a phone. That tasteless black sheep alone hadn't made any effort to dress well. "We still got enough party funds for 4 more. Add a few vegan ones for Fortuna," Ki-young said, before checking the kitchen for the 5th time in the past hour. Jamie had gathered an impressive array of alcohol bottles on the counter. "Will that be enough?" "They're the strongest liquors I could find," Jamie replied, intending to work as the barman and already busy making cocktails. Since genomes had a more efficient metabolism than normal humans, they needed 10 times the usual dose to even feel the effects of alcohol. "I've got genome-only stuff in my car," Ryan said. "But you will start shining in the dark and see invisible things." "Don't worry," Jamie said quickly. "Fortuna is bringing strong stuff, and, I quote, party pills." "No bliss?" Ki-young asked, her face tensing up. "No bliss," her boyfriend reassured her, while someone hit the doorbell. "Come in." The first guests opened the door, Ki-young anxiously standing straight next to Ryan while they walked inside. Night had fallen outside, and while the party was scheduled to start at 8, most guests would be fashionably late.